Laudetur Jesus Christus, Vatican and World News.
Today, Monday, February 8th, the Church celebrates the feast of Saint Josephine Bakhita. And these are today's headlines. Pope Francis receives members of the diplomatic corps accredited to the Holy See for the annual exchange of New Year's greetings. The Vatican releases the schedule for the Holy Father's upcoming apostolic visit to Iraq. And the Church in the Philippines is celebrating the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity in their country. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells. Our top story today, Pope Francis on Monday morning addressed members of the diplomatic corps accredited to the Holy See for the annual exchange of New Year's greetings. The traditional meeting with the ambassadors, which had been scheduled for January 25th, had to be postponed due to the Pope's sciatica pain. Meeting them today in the Hall of Benediction in St. Peter's Basilica, the Holy Father delivered a lengthy State of the World address, reflecting on wide-ranging issues and crises affecting various parts of the world, including those caused by the pandemic. He stressed that fraternity and hope can help overcome those crises. Robin Gomes has more on that story.
Pope Francis told the ambassadors that of all the problems affecting the world today, the most serious is the crisis of human relationships as the expression of the general anthropological crisis dealing with the very conception of the human person and his or her transcendent dignity. He said that the crisis provoked or unveiled by the pandemic have also offered opportunities to build a more humane, just, supportive and peaceful world. The realities of sickness and death made evident by the pandemic, the Pope pointed out, remind us of the value of every individual human life and its dignity from conception in the womb until its natural end. The pandemic has reminded us of the right of each human being to dignified care and that each human person is an end in himself or herself and never simply a means to be valued only for his or her usefulness. The pandemic has also demonstrated once again that the earth itself is fragile and in need of care. The ecological crisis caused by the indiscriminate exploitation of natural resources requires shared long-term solutions. The Pope spoke about the impacts of climate change on the small islands in the Pacific Ocean, Vietnam, the Philippines, Australia and California. Acute food insecurity is affecting Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger and South Sudan. The COVID-19 restrictions, the Pope noted, have particularly harmed medium-sized and small businesses, with the most fragile paying with the lack of livelihood. This economic crisis, he noted, has highlighted another illness of our time, that of an economy based on the exploitation and waste of both people and natural resources. He therefore called for an economy that brings life, not death, one that is inclusive and not exclusive. Speaking about the growing number of migrants and refugees, the Holy Father called for renewed commitment to protect them, together with internally displaced persons and the many vulnerable people forced to flee from persecution, violence, conflicts and wars. Pope Francis also noted that the crisis in politics has worsened in some countries during the pandemic, such as in Myanmar, where he lamented the path of democracy undertaken in recent years was brusquely interrupted by the recent coup. He hoped that the detained political leaders will be released soon. I am Robin Gomes.
Among the diplomats listening to the Pope's address this morning was British Ambassador Sally Axworthy. Shortly after the address, Ambassador Axworthy spoke with Vatican Radio about some of the concerns shared by the Holy See and Britain.
So this year he talked to us about crises, about the crises that have been affected in the world, so health, environment, economy, politics, and the crisis of humanity. So it was a slightly different focus to his usual speech to the diplomatic corps, which often focuses on international relations more. Whereas today there were some things about health, obviously because of coronavirus, and also about education, because he's clearly very worried about the effect the pandemic's having on the young. So it was a slightly different structure of speech to normal. He mentioned many of the well-known concerns of the Holy See, but he also mentioned one or two new things. So, for example, he mentioned the crisis in Myanmar. He also talked about the crisis of democracy as he sees it, and talked a lot about the need to respect free speech, to have a political environment that isn't too polemicised, and also to respect the rule of law. So those were all things that are important to the UK as well. So it was nice to see those in the speech.
And are there any common concerns that you particularly feel strongly about that the Holy See and Britain share?
So we share a lot, if not most, of the Pope's concerns. I mean, the one that stands out is on climate change, where this year the UK is the host of COP26, the Climate Change Summit, which will happen in Glasgow in November, and we're working in partnership with Italy on that. So the Pope spoke very strongly about climate change, and he mentioned the effect climate change is already having on the most vulnerable, on small island states, but also on famine in Africa. So I think he spoke very powerfully about that, and we are committed to working with the Holy See on climate change in the run-up to COP26.
And many thanks to British Ambassador Sally Axworthy for sharing her thoughts with us. She was speaking this morning with Vatican Radio's Francesca Merlo. Today, February 8th, is observed around the world as the International Day of Prayer and Reflection Against Trafficking in Persons. In a video message to mark the day, Pope Francis calls for an economy of care, courage, and the promotion of justice, aimed at building a society that puts the human person at the center. Father Benedict Mayaki has more on that story.
Pope Francis on Monday sent a video message on the occasion of the 7th International Day of Prayer and Reflection Against Trafficking in Persons. The Pope addressed his message to all those who work against human trafficking and those who are spiritually united on this day, which is also the liturgical memorial of St. Josephine Bakita, a slave girl who became a saint and a universal symbol of the Church's commitment against slavery. Explaining the significance of the World Day, the Pope said that it helps us to remember this tragedy and encourages us not to stop praying and fighting together. The aim, the Pope stressed, is for every enslaved person to return to being a free agent of his or her own life and to take an active part in the construction of the common good. The Pope went on to emphasize the need to pray for victims of trafficking and those who accompany the process of integration and social rehabilitation. He stressed that prayer enables us to be beacons, capable of discerning and making choices oriented towards the good. Reflecting on the theme of the World Day, which is an economy without human trafficking, the Pope said that an economy without human trafficking is an economy of care. Care, he explained, is taking care of people and nature, offering products and services for the growth of the common good. An economy of care is also one that cares for work, creating employment opportunities that do not exploit workers through degrading working conditions and grueling hours. Another character of an economy without human trafficking is one with market rules that promote justice and not exclusive special interests, Pope Francis said. He explained that trafficking in persons finds fertile ground in the approach of neoliberal capitalism and the deregulation of markets aimed at maximizing without ethical, social, and environmental limits. Also central to the creation of an economy without human trafficking is courage, said the Pope, not in the sense of recklessness or risking operations in search of risky gains, but rather the courage of patient construction, of planning that does not only consider short-term gain, but also medium and long-term fruits. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
To mark the International Day of Prayer and Awareness Against Human Trafficking, Christians around the world are invited to participate in an online prayer marathon organized by the International Committee of the World Day and coordinated by Talitha Kum, the network of consecrated life against trafficking in persons, organized by the International Union of Superiors General. Other partners include the Migrants and Refugees section of the Dicastery for Service to Integral Human Development, Caritas Internationalis, the World Union of Catholic Women's Organizations, the Focolare Movement, and many other local organizations involved at the local level. Event organizers announced that with this online marathon, it will be the first time that every organization working against trafficking in persons will be able to participate in the main event together. The online prayer marathon is being live streamed on YouTube. Further information is available on the International Day of Prayer and Awareness Against Human Trafficking website. Also today, Monday, the Holy See's press office announced Pope Francis' schedule for his upcoming apostolic visit to Iraq, which will take place from March 5th through the 8th of this year. Lydia O'Kane has more details on the Pope's schedule.
Pope Francis' apostolic visit to Iraq begins on Friday morning, the 5th of March, when he departs from Rome and arrives at Baghdad International Airport in the afternoon. The official welcome ceremony will take place at the Presidential Palace in Baghdad, followed by a courtesy visit to the President. Pope Francis will also meet with civil authorities and members of the diplomatic corps. As part of the schedule, on Friday, the Pope will meet with bishops, priests, religious, consecrated persons, seminarians and catechists at the Syro-Catholic Cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation in Baghdad. On Saturday, the 6th of March, Pope Francis will depart Baghdad for Najaf. Following a courtesy visit to the Grand Ayatollah, Pope Francis will fly to Nasiriyah for an interreligious meeting at the Plain of Ur. On his return to Baghdad in the afternoon, the Pope will celebrate Holy Mass at the Chaldean Cathedral of St. Joseph. On Sunday morning, Pope Francis will depart for Erbil. On arrival at the airport, he will be welcomed by religious and civil authorities from the region of Iraqi Kurdistan before continuing his journey by helicopter to Mosul. While there, he will recite a prayer of suffrage for the victims of war at the church square. The Pope will again take a helicopter to Marrakesh, where he will visit the Marrakesh community at the Church of the Immaculate Conception. In the afternoon, Pope Francis will return to Erbil, where he will celebrate Holy Mass at the Franco Hariri Stadium. Following the celebration, the Pope will depart for Baghdad. After a farewell ceremony on Monday morning, Pope Francis will depart for Rome. He's expected to touch down at Rome's Ciampino Airport later in the day.
Finally, the Church in the Philippines is set to kick off celebrations to mark the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity in the country this April. Catholicism is believed to have arrived in the Philippines in 1521, when the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan first set foot in what is now Cebu province. Father Maharbalili is the Secretary General of the Quincentennial Anniversary celebrations.
The celebration of the 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines is our way of thanking the Lord for giving us the gift of faith given to us 500 years ago. It would give us the opportunity to thank the Lord for all the graces, the blessings, and above all His faithfulness being with the Filipino people for 500 years. The theme of the 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines is Gifted to Give, taken from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 10, verse 8, that we were gifted with faith 500 years ago, and that we have the obligation and that mission to share that faith to other people. The presence of Christianity in the Philippines gave us so much help, especially with our present condition. The Philippines is not a rich country, and there are many poor people. And the Philippines has been a place where there are a lot of typhoons, poverty, and with this situation in hand, our faith in God gives us hope to look forward with faith, and it gives us joy amidst all these challenges in life.
And that was Father Maharbalili, Secretary General of the Anniversary celebrations. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells.